Welcome to this extended deep dive into one of the most horrifying and tragic true crime cases in recent history, the story of Mitchelle Blair, a Detroit mother whose actions shocked the world and left a trail of devastation in their wake. This is not just a story of murder, it is a story of broken systems, mental health, family dynamics, and the tragic consequences of neglect. Viewer discretion is advised as the details of this case are particularly disturbing. In this video, we will explore Blair's life, the circumstances that led to the horrific events, the aftermath of her actions, and the broader implications for child protective services and society at large. To understand how Mitchelle Blair reached the point where she took the lives of two of her own children, we need to go back to her early years. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, Blair's upbringing was shaped by the same issues that affect many in impoverished urban environments: financial instability, a lack of resources, and limited support systems. Growing up in a struggling community, Blair was no stranger to hardship. As a young woman, she had dreams like anyone else dreams of a better life, of raising a family, and of escaping the cycle of poverty that surrounded her. However, life took a different turn when she became a single mother of 4 children. The challenges she faced only intensified with time, especially as she found herself raising her children alone with little help from the fathers of her kids. Financial struggles, lack of emotional support, and the weight of responsibility began to take their toll on her mental health. For any single parent, raising children without a solid support system can be an overwhelming task. Blair's financial struggles were a constant source of stress. She relied heavily on public assistance to make ends meet, and like many in her community, she faced the constant pressure of trying to provide a stable life for her children while battling economic uncertainty. Despite the tough circumstances, Blair's neighbors often described her as fiercely protective of her children. On the surface, she seemed like a mother who was doing everything she could to keep her family afloat. But behind closed doors, the situation was much darker than anyone could have imagined. Neighbors and acquaintances were unaware of the internal struggles Blair faced and how those struggles were warping her perception of reality. The tragic turning point in this story came in March 2015 when Mitchelle Blair fell behind on rent payments and faced eviction from her home. What was supposed to be a routine eviction turned into a crime scene when the eviction team entered Blair's apartment. As they began removing her belongings, they stumbled upon a large freezer in the living room. Inside were the frozen bodies of 2 of Blair's children, Stoney Blair, 13, and Stephen Barry, 9. This discovery sent shockwaves throughout the community and soon across the nation. The idea that a mother could live with the bodies of her own children for years without anyone noticing was beyond comprehension for many. The once quiet apartment complex was now the center of a media frenzy, and Blair was arrested immediately following the discovery. Following her arrest, Blair did not hesitate to confess to the murders of Stoney and Stephen. In fact, she seemed disturbingly calm and resolute about her actions. She claimed that the 2 children had been abusing their younger sibling, a claim that law enforcement and child protective services later found no evidence to support. Blair described in detail how she had abused both children over an extended period of time, culminating in their deaths. According to her, this abuse was a form of punishment for what she believed were their actions against their sibling. However, the alleged abuse was never substantiated, and it became clear that the real issue lay in Blair's deteriorating mental state. What was particularly chilling about Blair's confession was the lack of remorse she expressed. She made it clear that she believed her actions were justified and that, given the chance, she would do it all again. This disturbing mindset raised questions about her mental health, and whether she had been suffering from untreated psychological disorders that had escalated to this point of violence. One of the most troubling aspects of this case is the role or lack thereof of Child Protective Services (CPS). During the investigation, it was revealed that CPS had been called to Blair's home multiple times over the years due to concerns about the children's welfare. Neighbors had reported incidents of possible abuse, and yet no substantial intervention ever took place. This tragic failure of the system allowed the situation to escalate until it was too late. CPS workers visited the home, but the children remained in Blair's custody. How could such a catastrophic breakdown in oversight occur? This case, like many others, highlights the underfunding, overburdening, and inefficiencies within the child welfare system. While it is easy to point fingers at CPS, the deeper issue is a systemic one. With too few resources, overworked case workers, and bureaucratic roadblocks, the system often fails the very children it is supposed to protect. Blair's case is just one of many where the signs were there, but the intervention never came. After her arrest, Mitchelle Blair was charged with multiple counts of murder and child abuse. During the trial, Blair never wavered from her original confession. She openly admitted to her crimes, showing no remorse and insisting that she had done what was necessary to protect her youngest child. In June 2015, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Throughout the trial, the public watched in disbelief as Blair defended her actions. She maintained that she was protecting her child, and in her mind, this justified the horrific violence she inflicted on Stoney and Stephen. Blair's lack of remorse and emotional detachment only added to the horror of the case, as it became clear that she truly believed in the righteousness of her actions. The trial also brought to light Blair's own history of abuse, which may have contributed to her warped sense of justice. She revealed that she had been sexually abused as a child. And while this in no way justifies her actions, it may offer some insight into the deep psychological trauma she carried throughout her life. Blair's case raises important questions about mental health and the criminal justice system throughout the trial. Blair showed signs of deep psychological distress, and while she was never officially diagnosed with a mental illness, many experts believe that she may have been suffering from conditions such as paranoid delusions, post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), or a personality disorder. Her fixation on the idea that her children were abusers, despite the lack of evidence, suggests a break from reality that went unchecked for years. The failure to provide Blair with mental health support before the murders took place is another systemic issue that deserves attention. The intersection of mental health and criminal behavior is a complex one. While Blair was held accountable for her actions, it is important to consider how untreated mental illness can contribute to violent behavior. Her case is a stark reminder of the need for early intervention and mental health care, not just for individuals like Blair, but for anyone showing signs of psychological distress. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this case is the fate of Blair's two surviving children, who had lived in the same home where their siblings were killed. And hidden in a freezer, these children were not only witnesses to the abuse but were also forced to live with the trauma of losing their siblings in such a horrific way. Following Blair's arrest, the two surviving children were placed into foster care. The emotional and psychological scars they carry from this experience will likely stay with them for the rest of their lives. It is a sobering reminder of the lasting impact of family violence, not just on those directly involved, but on the survivors who are left to pick up the pieces. The Mitchelle Blair case serves as a tragic reminder of the systemic failures that can occur when children fall through the cracks. From child protective services to the mental health system, the warning signs were there, but no meaningful intervention took place. This allowed the situation to escalate until it reached a point of no return. Blair's case has sparked discussions about how to improve the child welfare system, increase funding for mental health services, and better support families in crisis. While changes have been made in the years since her arrest, there is still much work to be done to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. As we reflect on this case, one of the most pressing questions is, how could this have been prevented? Could more thorough investigations by CPS have made a difference? Would early mental health intervention for Blair have stopped the violence before it began? These are questions that may never have clear answers, but they are important to consider as we work toward creating a society that better supports vulnerable families. The key takeaway from Blair's case is that early intervention, whether through mental health support, child welfare services, or community involvement, can save lives. The story of Mitchelle Blair is a tragedy on every level. It is a story of a mother who became a murderer, a system that failed to protect innocent children, and a society that must confront the uncomfortable reality of family violence and mental illness. Thank you for joining us for this in-depth look at the Mitchelle Blair case. If you found this